This week, we're spending a few minutes with Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who is seeking a sixth term in the U.S. House of Representatives. Ms. Stefanik is now the fourth highest-ranking Republican in the U.S. House of Representatives and a staunch supporter of former President Donald Trump. You may remember she was on the short list of candidates to be the party's VP, and she delivered a primetime speech on his behalf at the Republican National Convention this summer.
Hello, New York!
This past Sunday, she was one of the featured speakers at Mr. Trump's campaign rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Every election, we say, is the most important in our lifetime, but this one really is.
Her campaign team did not respond to our request to interview the Congresswoman in the weeks leading up to the election, but she did spend a few minutes with our colleagues from WCAX Television this past week, and they were kind enough to let us share some of that interview. Reporter Alek LaShomb asked the Congresswoman why voters in the 21st District should send her back to Washington for another term.
Well, I'm so honored to serve as the Congresswoman for New York's 21st Congressional District. I ran for office 10 years ago, and I've been proud to overwhelmingly earn the support not just of Republicans and independents, but also a fair number of Democrats as well. And that's because of my record of results. I stand up for our upstate and North Country values, whether that's standing up for the Second Amendment or whether it's growing up in my family's small business. I've been a stalwart advocate for small businesses, local family farms, as well as regional issues like the northern border, regional issues like rural broadband. So I'm proud to be running on my record of results. And this election is the most important election in our lifetime. I'm proud to be one of the strongest surrogates for President Trump and the first member of Congress who endorsed him in the 2024 election cycle.
The Congresswoman was also asked about some of the major issues this election, including immigration and the record number of illegal migrants crossing the northern border in the past year.
Well, we know what worked, and we had the most secure border in our nation's history under President Trump. And 3.5 years ago, I led the effort to ring the alarm bells for the crisis on the northern border, specifically the Swanton sector, which I represent, where you've seen a skyrocketing of illegals crossing. I was just up in Clinton and Franklin County meeting with families and small businesses who have seen firsthand the illegals crossing their private property. Even hearing a story from a young family on the first week of school, they were putting their young school-age children on the school bus, and there were illegals banging on the exterior of the school bus. That should never happen in any region across America, but it's certainly something we've never seen in New York State before, specifically in the North Country. What we need to do is elect President Trump, who on day one will end catch and release, who will restore remain in Mexico, and he will continue to invest in border patrol and the construction of the border wall on our southern border. My priority is making sure the northern border has the resources we need. We voted for the Secure the Border Act in Congress. Every Democrat opposed it. I was proud to vote in support of that. That would provide the personnel we need on the northern border. Well, we know what the solutions are. The solutions are electing President Donald Trump, and the reality is Kamala Harris, as Joe Biden's open borders are, it would just be signing executive actions, which Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did on day one. They opened up the border wide open, and they could close it right now in terms of restoring the border security policies of President Trump. They've refused to do so. I would also point out Chuck Schumer has had the Secure the Border bill on his desk for over a year. He has let it gather dust because he's playing politics and appeasing the radical open border far left of today's Democrat Party. So we're going to get this done. We'll get this done with a Republican Senate, a Republican House, and a Republican president in President Trump.
Stefanik says it's important to keep the northern border open, but says the U.S. and Canada need to do more to stop the influx of illegal migrants crossing the border.
Well, of course, we want to continue to have the legal trade in between U.S. and Canada, but we need to have to ensure there's no illegal crossings on our northern border. What does that mean? That means increasing the number of Border Patrol on the northern border. That means increasing the number of CBP as well. And that also means having tough conversations with Canada with their visa process and travel process that has allowed people to fly into Montreal and then illegally cross our border. All of that is going to happen under President Trump. It's a disgrace that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have let it get this far, that we have individuals on the terrorist watch list that are crossing literally into our communities on the northern border right through my district. And I will continue sounding this alarm. So this is one of many reasons why we need to make sure we vote this election cycle to save the country.
Ms. Stefanik was also asked about her position on reproductive rights.
I'm pro-life with exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I support access to IVF, and it's best determined at the state level. That's where the vast majority of voters are, not only in my district, but across the country. And I stand on my strong record when it comes to reflecting the values of upstate New York.
And she was asked about addressing health care costs and needs in rural areas like the North Country.
Well, that has been my North Star, is how do we lower healthcare costs but improve quality and accessibility, especially in rural communities. And my record is very strong when it comes to standing up for rural hospitals and rural community health centers. They are so incredibly important for our communities, for our small businesses, as well as just for our way of life. When it comes to seniors, I have been a proponent of delivering results to our seniors in the forms of Social Security benefits, millions of dollars of Medicare benefits for our seniors. In addition, I've promoted telehealth when available, and of course part of that is rural broadband as well. For some of our seniors, when it comes to specialty visits, if they want to choose a doctor, perhaps that's outside of the region, or they need an appointment right away to use telehealth, making sure that the reimbursement model works to provide that available for our constituents. In addition, I have supported the Lower Cost, More Cures Act to lower the cost of prescription drugs, but also to spur innovation and investment in the FDA approval process of life savings drugs. We're going to do more to lower those prescription drug costs and make healthcare more affordable and accessible. And I've been specifically focused on the rural hospital, rural physician, and rural community health center piece.
And she was asked about Amtrak service through the North Country to Montreal being suspended for 2 years in a row during the summer season.
We have been the leader in pushing Amtrak. As we remember, the Adirondack line had been canceled and was up and down based upon Amtrak's whim. The Biden administration and Kamala Harris administration has been totally abysmal when it comes to making sure that we have access here. We have led the effort of oversight over Amtrak and accountability in making sure there's certainty specifically for the Adirondack line serving our communities up and down the North Country, right through my district. And we're going to continue to do so. We are fully funding this, and that means they need to meet their responsibility to serve those communities. It is an important thoroughfare, not only for tourists, but for people who live and work in the Adirondacks and in the North Country.
The Congresswoman talked about veterans' benefits and care, as well as her commitment to Fort Drum and the North Country's military community.
We have the highest number of veterans in my congressional district than any other district in New York State. I have a strong record specifically of delivering millions of VA benefits through the casework. We have a deep connection to our local veterans. I'm proud to be such a loyal supporter of the North Country Honor Flight, which is a tremendous program. I've been involved with that, or greeting the veterans either in Washington or sending them off in the district for well over a decade. In addition, I'm proud to be the chief advocate for Fort Drum. This is incredibly important. It's the largest single site employer in the district. I was proud to host President Trump to sign the National Defense Bill there, voting for the highest pay increase for our military in our nation's history, as well as pro-military family legislation like increasing access to child care, allowing it to be easier for military spouses to transfer their professional licenses from one state to the other, making sure that our schools with military children have the resources they need. That's a federal pot of money that flows directly into our school districts. In redistricting, Rome Air Force Research Lab has been added to my district, which is a great fit. I've already delivered $400 million to Rome, even before it was in my district, because of my seat on the House Armed Services Committee. So we will continue to be the top advocate for veterans and for military families in New York.
And she was also asked about her position on the issue of gun rights.
Well, I'm proud to be the only candidate consistently who has run in this district for Congress with an A+ rating when it comes to standing up for our Second Amendment rights and our constitutional rights. As you said, we have a long historic record of gun ownership in this district, and it does not fall on party lines. It goes for Republicans, independents, conservatives, and Democrats as well. What I have done is I have supported school resource officers and increased mental health funding. School resource officers are programs that have been supported by county sheriffs, and what I've tried to do at the federal level is make federal dollars available through grants to our county sheriffs and local law enforcement to support those school resource officers in our rural, suburban, and some of our school districts in the more populated areas in the district.
And finally, the Congresswoman was asked about her Democratic opponent in the race, Paula Collins.
Look, I'm the only candidate who's born, raised, works, and lives in upstate New York. My opponent, like every other Democrat opponent in recent years, has been airdropped into the district. She's a New York City cannabis attorney who's illegally paying her rent with campaign dollars, which is why she's under investigation by the FEC. But the reality is we're going to earn support based upon my record of results. And Democrats have gotten beaten soundly, cycle after cycle. It's going to be the biggest victory ever this election cycle because I'm going to outwork, as I always do, my opponent that has been shipped up from New York City.
We sat down with challenger Paula Collins a few weeks ago. You can watch that interview on our website and YouTube channel.